In today's video, we're reacting to your YouTube comments with Polarr CEO Polarr Wang. These comments come from our recent collaborations with some fantastic YouTube influencers. We'll be tackling a few critical comments and checking out positive feedback we received, sharing our thoughts and insights. Let's get into it. All right. How's it going, Polarr?
Doing pretty good. Glad to be on the show and talk to some real customers.
Before we jump into these, Polarr, how do you feel about just responding to the raw negative stuff, the positive? Like, what do you think about that?
I mean, we've been doing this for a long time, since we started building the project last May. So, around 1.5 years ago, it's the same, we like to hear all feedback, whether it's negative or positive. It's all good feedback.
Yeah, and so today's feedback specifically comes from the YouTube videos that we've been collabing with different influencers, and this has given us the opportunity to respond, with things like pricing changes and stuff we'll discuss a little bit later. So, all right, so I've sent Polarr the doc with the questions, but I'm also going to be pulling them up on the stream. So for those who are watching and you may not catch what the question is, you can read it. So let's start with this first one, and we're just gonna jump right into this. So question number one, or sorry, I shouldn't say question, comment number one. This comment was one of the most popular comments on Tom Carlton's YouTube video, and it was just very bluntly, subscription, no thanks. And then they kind of went in deeper. No thanks. My current issues with Adobe is that they only offer subscriptions and that they're forcing unscrupulous user agreement in order to train their AI of the pro user skill. So if a company really wants to take customers away from Adobe, I believe it's those areas they should focus on. So for Polarr, can you explain the value of Polarr Next subscription, and particularly how it just supports continuous updates, improvements, and benefits for users?
Yeah, so the goal for any product service is really trying to provide value at the cheapest and most affordable possible pricing to customers, and this is something that we've been working on. Before we started the project, we saw Adobe has a subscription, which is $10 to $20 depending on what software you're using, Photoshop or Photoshop plus Lightroom per month. And then if you use calling software, you have calling apps that's charged $10, $20, $30 per month. And then if you want to use AI processing software on top of it, then you're talking about another 10, 20, sometimes up to 50 and 70 out there, I think. So it's really, the cost adds up a lot, right? To fully have a calling automation, editing automation, and editing tool, we're talking about north of $100 per month. So our thought is two, right? Number one is, if we're doing subscription, how do we make everything into one experience that's already cheaper? And I think subscription, the reason people do subscription, company do it because there's ongoing costs to service the customers. There's ongoing updates to continue pushing releases and patches. So there's just saving the styles, account, manage all the AI training, right? So that's really the consideration is we want to still make it much cheaper, and then at this time our price is $30, unlimited usage for everything. I think it's already very competitive. But then we also hear, we totally understand, the usage-based model sometimes just don't make sense, right? Yeah, sure, the app is updating. We've been pushing a pretty major feature every month, but if I don't have any wedding this month, I don't get to use it, why should I pay for it, right? And then this constant, having to turn a subscription off and on, the Netflix, it could be, it's very difficult to manage that. So we have also alternative, which is this purely outcome-based pricing. You don't need to pay the subscription if you prefer your lower volume or your volume fluctuate over the months. You can pay the pay-as-you-go, and this is also something that we thought very hard about. It's on the pay-as-you-go plan, the philosophy is we don't charge any money if the outcome is not satisfactory, right? Like, it's not like many other software you're being charged on the usage, right? Regardless of, whether the output is good or not, you still pay when the AI is processing. But for our pay-as-you-go plan, it's purely based on exports. If you don't export, the app is free. We only feel like we deserve that money if you find the results is something that you want. So I think that's sort of, a plan that's more reasonable for those who have less volume. And I think it's very fair that, we provide a service and you like the outcome, and we only charge you based on that. But if you have higher volume, I don't think you can find a better price out there in the market, with the calling AI and editing. So and that price point for subscription, I think it's already extremely competitive.
That's really good. And kind of like what I said before, responding to these comments allowed us to kind of change up our pricing model and everything. So, evaluating the landscape of what's out there, AI culling subscriptions, AI editing subscriptions, and then on top of that, paying for the program itself. It makes a lot of sense when you wrap it up like that in just one package, $30 a month, or if you do the yearly. And then the pay-as-you-go option, I don't feel like I've been able to share and talk about that as much, but I think that's like a very strong option out there for people who don't like subscriptions and don't have the constant high volume photos that they need to constantly edit and export and stuff. So I do see in the comments, of course, some more comments about, not being a fan of subscriptions and wanting that lifetime license or whatnot. But it makes sense. And, the thing with like Topaz Labs, I do have a lifetime license to that, but I haven't updated it in like 2 years, and they just upped the price of the upgrade pricing of that. So I think there's some trade-offs here.
Let me just add like a few more points, right? For companies like Polarr, when we think about charging money, both the subscription and the pay-as-you-go are very effective in supporting our operations, right? Like, this is kind of the reason that motivates me. We want to keep those people subscribing, so we want to continue to build improvements and features. I remember like when we launched the 1.0 beta, we didn't have any calling. We didn't have any. We didn't even have like masking tools or AI masking and healing and any of that, right? So when people pay, and then the relationship between the customer and the company is, when people pay subscription, they're really supporting the company's operation, but while the company also realized we want to keep people, so we're gonna keep adding and improving more features. And even after we launched 2.0 beta, I think within like a month, we added AI scores and keeper suggestions, which people didn't have. So it's very fast follow. So from that lens, if a company just charge a one-time price, like it will be difficult to motivate the team and the company to continue to deliver updates. And then the software, just like what Aaron said, is very likely to be stale. Or at some point when there's a new improvement, they're gonna say, okay, like we have a new version. To get the new features, you have to pay extra, right? Which happens a lot. So for us, we want to make it simple, and then so we think that so far, like all the pricing model out there for a fast-moving project, a product like Polarr Next, subscription still makes the most sense.
All right, so let's go ahead and go on to the next comment here. So this one is quite long, but I kind of condensed it down for those who are on stream. So let me just pull that up here. All right, so this comment says, I don't know if I'm a bit late to the party, but this all seems a bit weird. I really dislike the overuse of the phrase AI in everything, especially when it's not. What this program is doing, adjusting exposure, color correction, looks like a lot of advanced histogram matching. Even the rectification of images, rotational alignment can be done algorithmically, and should be. Using AI for things like this is unnecessary, a bit of overkill, and just a label to oversell your product, in my opinion. I'm sure there could be some machine learning features in there that could have a place, but even then, it is blatantly overpriced. So just hitting at, AI, can you clarify the role of AI in Polarr Next? And do you agree that the term AI is sometimes overused in marketing? And does this apply to Polarr Next?
Yeah, I'll just start off saying that I 100% agree. It's not even sometimes, it's all the time. It's being overused in marketing everywhere. And this is something that, me and my partner, our co-founder, and then we spent a lot of time debating. The original view with us is we actually didn't want to use the AI term at all. It's such an ambiguous term. It means like something different for everybody. It's like the word love, right? Like, for some people it's like ASI or AGI. For other people, it's just some sort of simple algorithm, simple math that appear to be intelligent, right? So everybody have a different meaning. And then I think Apple is probably the company that sort of refrained from using the word AI for the longest. So the original landing page and everything, we actually didn't use any AI. We're just saying like, this is like machine intelligence, machine learning, and then trying to downplay it so we don't confuse people. But during the initial phase of go-to-market messaging, we discovered that if you don't use the word AI, a lot of customers actually just don't think the software is smart enough. So it's a fine balance of like, you have to use a certain word that's already in the lingo of our society where it means something, but you don't want to overuse it. And then we're sort of trying to strike that fine balance of, not AI in front of the face, but then for those who don't know deep enough about AI, what's the work, the underlying work, inside AI, we still want to make people aware that there's artificial intelligence elements in it, right? And with that being said, we actually go to our landing page versus our competitor's landing page. We don't have AI out there the first screen. Like the Polarr Next website has calling and editing simplified. This is like the outcome-driven thing. We only bury the word AI in like a small subtext there. So this is something where we want to make people, when they look at our landing page or product, they're focusing on the outcome, which is simplified delivery and consistent edits. But the AI is the technique that support its outcome, and that's sort of like more buried. So that's like the first part, which is kind of the use of the term AI. The second part, which is the actual utilization of AI, yeah, definitely. Like maybe AI today is more about large language models, but then a few years ago, like if you're doing masking, face detection, these are all neural network trained to detect faces, to masking out backgrounds. All these elements are all here inside Polarr Next. And then, the market reference learning, that's a very specific system we designed, and there's a lot of intelligence built in. So I don't think, AI applications in today's age, there's a singular, AI module. It's typically a combination of, this traditional computer vision based AI, reinforcement learning based AI, you're teaching something, and diffusion based AI, right? Like, you're doing erasing of a patch, and language model based AI, right? At some point, you can directly interact with your software. And then these are just different variants and different flavors of AI. I think it's all going to be putting into products and services. And I can see why that's very confusing, right? Like then, it's like, what do you mean by AI? But, just realizing that there's subdomains of AI, and then there's, they're being used at a different level, right? Sometimes we also need to balance the speed of the software and the actual performance. So we can't just put the best AI model out there. We have to have like a smaller, faster model, right? That's why like even inside one subdomain, like you're using ChatGPT, there's like this 1.0 preview, 4, 4.0, 3, 3.5, like all these kind of models, right? So it can quickly become pretty difficult to understand.
That was really good. Thank you for answering that question. And I know AI is definitely something that it still feels very, very infant. Like we're still in like the infancy levels of it, especially with like photography. My experience as a photographer, seeing AI culling come on the scene and seeing AI editing, it's really getting stronger. I feel the amount of photographers using AI and it becoming more commonplace, but it still feels very infant in a way where it's like we're just getting started. It's kind of crazy how like if this is like the worst it's gonna be, like I just can't imagine where it's gonna be, you know, a year from now, and just how drastic that change is gonna be. So this next question kind of continues on with the AI thread. Just kind of very simply, they want to know, does anyone know factually if this uses images to train its AI? So, you know, some users are concerned about whether their images are being used to train AI without their consent. Can Polarr Next clarify their stance on user privacy and how it ensures images aren't being used without permission?
I mean, our stance on privacy is always like you tell the customer exactly what you're gonna do, and then you use the content they provided only to the extent that benefit them. You know, if you think about privacy, right? Like, you know, when we use Google Map, you have to disclose your location to it. In exchange, you know, it helps you navigate, right? Like customers, or you know, we only provide, you know, we go to the bank, we have to disclose our address, and you know, but we're trusting them that, you know, with all the information, they're gonna, you know, help us, you know, manage our financials, and you know, our cash is safe, right? So there's obviously exchange of, you know, users provide privacy, and the companies need to use what's given and then provide the services. And then for us, it's the same, is because we are going to learn how you edit your photos, then your photos are being used to train your personal AI styles. But the AI style belongs to you. It doesn't belong to anybody. There's nobody who have visibility to it or have access to it. And it's only to the extent of benefiting, you know, the people who train the AI. And this AI style can be deleted. It's actually a physical file on each, you know, inside the project folder. If you delete it, it's gone. You know, like you can actually manage, you know, the AI's previous memory. And once you delete it, have no memory whatsoever, whatever happened to that AI style. So our stance is really, you know, just providing that transparency and then making very clear what we're doing. And, you know, and then some companies will go to the far end of open sourcing at some point, like, you know, maybe like how their AI, you know, maybe some of the code, so people can even check and verify that this is actually happening. It could be something we consider doing down the line once our team is more scaled up. So, you know, I know like we can say all the things we're doing, but like to actually verify that you're not using the images elsewhere, then the best way is to verify and look at the code, right? And it's also just this, like, just, you know, there's really no benefits for companies to use private information outside the scope of their services. There's just so much liabilities, and it also doesn't generate any actual benefit. So for us, you know, yeah, all these are elements that really ensures that we don't have incentive to use these photos without permission. And then we are, you know, allocating our resources to make sure, like, you know, any ounce of data that's provided by our customer, we use it we make the most use of it, and to create AI styles that actually works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is exactly why we do these type of live streams, to be able to answer you guys' questions, because I feel like, as I said prior, you know, AI being in its infancy, and like the photography world, trying to get hundreds of thousands of people to like learn AI and like what our program does, you know, it's not gonna be the same exact the way that like Meta does, or like Apple or whatever. And so we have like different processes with this, and to be able to train and teach you guys about like how to manage your AI styles, how to delete them if you don't want them anymore, you know, deleting your browser cache, and like what that all affects your AI styles and the things you've trained. And then if I can tack on just like one more question to kind of pull more on this. So users, when they train the AI model, that's specifically in relation to the file, the physical file on their hard drive. Is there any type of training in Polarr Next backend, like in general, to like how to edit or whatever? And like those files aren't user files, right? Those are files that like Polarr Next has training on its own.
Yeah, I mean the backend and like the way we look at compute resources, right? It's just like when the front end do not have sufficient resources, we'll have to shift it to the backend, right? But just think about like a computer that's sitting in your desk or somewhere else. But regardless, when we actually train it, we don't look at the raw pixels. Like the machines, when they look at these images, they typically extract what we call features. And these features are matrices that the machine deems to be important. Like, back in the old days, right, humans actually pick these features, right? Like exposure level, how many pixels are red, how many pixels are green or white, right? So histogram and things like that. These days, when we train the AI, we will first convert these images into a very high dimensional set of features. And these features are oftentimes not even recognizable by human. It just doesn't make any sense. But for the AI algorithms, it will make sense for it to come up with, recognize certain patterns. And then these features can be stored and transferred, from your local computer to the cloud for training purposes in the future. But it still shielded the customer's original like bitmap images away, and nobody can really tell what these pictures are. And just in defense of kind of Meta and Google, I mean, these data is when I'm pretty sure they have to do the same thing to be in compliance with all the new rules. Mm-hmm. Where similarly, when they're training using your data, there's absolutely no way to reverse it back to identifiable information. Mm-hmm. That's where my beliefs are. But of course, right, ultimately, the jury is really do we have a data breach that makes an impact customers? And I think the chance for us is near zero, precisely because we don't really store any actual user photos in our backend.
Awesome, good. So I appreciate all your answers and feedback so far from these last 3 questions, and there's definitely more comments we could probably dive deep on, maybe another live stream. But we're going to move into the last 2 comments. And these ones are more lighthearted. These are more positive comments, that feedback that we got. And would love to hear your thoughts on them. So this one says, this user says, looks promising. Trying right now with 1,000 photos from a wedding, way faster than Lightroom. I would love it if it had an auto skin recognition also, but I can live without it. So hearing feedback that Polarr Next is faster than Lightroom seems to be quite common. Does it ever get old to you? And then as far as like a missing feature, how does Polarr Next prioritize new features like this based on user feedback?
I wouldn't say it's getting old or getting new. It's just as expected. When we developed the infrastructure behind Polarr Next, we knew it's going to be faster, and then it is faster. So it's meet expectation, and then we move on. So when we see this comments, we're like, of course, right? This is by design. And then when it comes to feature prioritization, I would say it's ultimately, we don't want to ship features so fast, so the quality is not great, right? We're actually aware of a lot of issues. There are still people who don't quite understand mark references, and then when they mark references, there's a feedback of lacking control, right? Some people be like, hey, why is this photo updated, not that? I want to have more control. So for us, when we look at features, we track metrics with how many photos exported is actually AI, fully AI, humans do not have to get involved. For calling, what is the accuracy, right? What percentage of photos that we recommend as keywords actually get kept. I think right now that's around 70%. And then for AI, I think it's around 60%. Basically 60% of photos are exported without human intervention. So before we even get into, new features, we have to ask ourselves, is the existing features still have a lot of room of improvement and, polishing and then iteration, or people are not using the product because we're missing a brand new feature like skin recognition, right? So internally, we basically look at these and then we prioritize them, and then we have a repository of every single customer feedback that ever landed in any channel. Could be an email, could be a live stream, could be YouTube, and we triage them, continuously to prioritize.
Awesome. And man, just through the months that I've been involved with, I can definitely say that, user feedback is critical. We've implemented a ton of new features and added new features based on, user feedback. One of my favorites is the black and white, being able to mark all the photos and references in black and white, and then the AI will apply those edits, those black and white edits to the entire project. For those who shoot like boudoir or want those like black and white. So pretty unique, pretty awesome. And we keep that feedback coming. All right. This last comment here says this: I'm glad a company is finally implementing machine learning in a way that makes sense. Kudos to them for that. So can you elaborate? And we might have touched on this before, but can you elaborate on how machine learning is integrated into Polarr Next and just what specific problems it aims to solve for photographers specifically?
I think machine learning is, again, it's the terminology. It's the umbrella term, right? It's like everything is machine learning. Like you can say LLM is machine learning. It's like saying that do you use molecules? Like if you're a chef, you're cooking something. If you ask the chef, like, is this dish made of molecules? Although people typically don't say that, like it's made of like spice and meat and proteins. But yeah, like machine learning is really sort of the foundation. It literally just means like you're giving some sort of entropy and then pattern to the machine and gets to learn. And there's all sorts of different technique, like reinforcement learning, CN, recurrent networks and RNN, CNN, and now large language models and diffusions. These are all machine learning techniques. But I'm thinking that this person's comment, what's interesting is the machine learning that makes sense. It depends on kind of the familiarity with like sense making. I feel like a lot of time you can have like a machine learning algorithm and it's such a or AI algorithm that's such a black box, and the output that's generating all of it sometimes just makes no sense. And I think that's probably what's being referred to here. I think in Polarr Next there is a sense of when you see a new data point, you can see how when you add a new data point, you can see how it actually influences a machine learning algorithm. I think or influence AI. I think that's where the making sense part is. And then we definitely want to lean more into that, right? I know like there are companies, you just submit like a bunch of images and then something just gets generated. You don't quite know how. And then, when you try to add more data, you're like, how did that exactly make it better? Like how much did it make it better? It just learns there. But the nature for us being like Polarr Next, very iterative in real time, I think it exposes the sort of iteration and how the AI works. And I will even say like we will go more into the direction. We want to let people even see and understand more how the AI actually works behind the scene. And this is something that's already on the roadmap where we're thinking about like, every time you're adding a data point, we actually want to show you like how did I actually, if you're curious, you don't have to, but if you're curious, you have the ability to see how exactly it's leveraging the information and how is it like cascading to other photos. And then you can actually stop it or you want to control it in a different way.
I love that. And to kind of tack onto this, what specific problems it aims to solve for photographers. I feel like if you went back like maybe 10, 15 years ago when we're still in the era of like DSLRs, the need for programs to edit large batches of photos didn't seem like that needed. We were just content with just editing and maybe using some batch sync and stuff like that. But I feel like these cameras being mirrorless, the higher frame rates, the larger raw files, like being able to edit in large volumes like this now, it almost seems like cameras and photographers kind of created these problems for ourselves where it's like we've got these better, faster tools, but now our software is like kind of too old or dated. And now we need better, faster software that can handle like these problems that we're encountering. So I love that we can do these live streams to hear from, you know, you, Polarr, and, you know, your vision for like, how can we help photographers understand, you know, not like you said, not just to throw our images into something and then just to get it spit out back to us edited. Like, I think there's a lot of photographers out there who want to learn and know, like, okay, what is the AI doing here? If I mark this data point as a reference, what's the AI going to do from here, and how's it going to affect my photos? So being able to hear that, it's on the roadmap, and you know, something that Polarr Next wants to do for this community is really awesome. So that was the last comment here. Is there anything else that you would like to share, Polarr, or talk about or comment on?
Yeah, I'll just add to the kind of a closing thought on what you mentioned on the, you know, like photographers taking more photos and shutters are getting faster and files getting bigger, and you know, it's almost like this is a problem being created. I wouldn't say like it's like, you know, somehow these manufacturers, camera brands just have some sort of conspiracy. They're creating problems. I would say it's just reality. It's very high bandwidth. I don't know if you guys like have used like a DJI drone, like you're so excited, take a bunch of footages, or you have a GoPro, and do you actually have time to process and edit? Most people don't. Like, they just, you know, it's for hobby and for personal and family use. Is when you give people the tools to capture reality, they will do it. And because we want to get close, we want to remember the reality in the highest fidelity possible. And then in that case, I mean, like, you know, our eyes can, the bandwidth of our eyes is insane, like the color depth, the dynamic range and everything. So when new tools are become available, people will embrace it. And up to the point where we can actually record reality as precisely as how we perceived it, right? So I think that's not a problem invented, it's just like a human nature. And, but with new tools, you know, like batch editing AI, I think it would just make it easier for people to start generating meaningful like snippets, right? Like photos and you know, stylized photos, all of it. And it will only help and complement this like hardware progress. You know, without the software there, then you know, even if you have all these equipments, you wouldn't be able to meaningfully you know, edit and perform any sort of you know, output out of it, right? So I think that's sort of the way we look at it. Is we think the future is going to be on the hardware side, is continue going to get higher output, and then, you know, higher bit rate and higher fidelity. It's going to continue to get closer to how our humans experience the world, and the software, it has to catch up, and it has to match that speed.
That's great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Polarr, for joining us here today for this morning. Well, morning for me, kind of early afternoon for you. Everyone else in the chat that might have any follow-up questions or anything, please answer, or, you know, put it in the chat, and then you can always email us and we'll get back to you as soon as you can. But Polarr, thank you so much. This is where we part, and hopefully we can get you on again in the future.
All right, great. Thanks, Aaron.
All right. No problem. Let's go ahead. Awesome. Thanks for tuning in and being a part of this journey with us. If you're curious about Polarr Next, why not try it out for free? New signups receive 2,000 export credits, and there's no credit card required. So it's totally risk-free. Let us know in the comments what you think, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates. And if you'd like to see a first impression of Polarr Next from a photographer who has never tried AI editing, well, check out this video.